Welcome to the Sinner and the Saint. I'm Melissa Bell,
And I'm Allison Kane.
and today we are talking about boundaries, or just say no.
It's as easy as that.
It is. When I was little, my sister and I, we always shared a room, and so we had this invisible boundary down the center of our room. Have you had one of those before?
We never shared. Well, I always imagined the tape down the line. I think my brother and I did that one time. We
Oh.
actually put a line of like masking tape.
Yeah.
When we got mad one time. I was like, "Don't cross my line."
Yeah, so my kids do that in the car all the time, but my sister and I, we had this invisible line, and then one time we got in this huge fight. It was all the time because I was really feisty, and her curling iron was plugged in on my side of the room, and I was in a rage, and I wasn't thinking, so I unplugged the curling iron, and I hand her the curling iron. And she thought I did it on purpose, like burnt her hand. And she still to this day swears I did it on purpose. And I did not. I was just really angry. Just take your stupid curling iron. I wasn't smart enough to think ahead and try to burn her.
Now, if I'd really been thinking, I might have done it.
Now I laugh like, Amy, why did you even have a curling iron? Your hair is curly.
Oh my gosh.
Let's talk about that on another one, Amy.
Sometimes, even though I have really curly hair, when I was younger, I did get a perm.
Oh.
Isn't that weird? Because that's what you did then.
Oh my gosh, I had some of the best perms. My hair was so great then.
Can you believe we used to get perms?
I'm not
Smells
gonna
like
lie.
rotten eggs.
I asked my hairdresser, I'm like, so could I get a perm? And she looks like literally in the last 6 months. She's like, Melissa, no one gets perms anymore. I'm like, but would it just make my hair? She's like, just stop. Just color
Nobody
it
gets
and
perms anymore, huh?
I mean, not many. If you get a perm, let us know.
Yeah, we'd like to know where you get it and how that's going.
But she said because like if I got a perm and color my hair, it would probably fall out.
Oh, good point.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't coloring my hair back then, so I guess the perms were fine. Plus, we didn't know all these things about chemicals. We just did whatever we wanted.
Oh,
Cigarettes were fine. Perms were fine.
Why have we not blamed things on the hair chemicals?
Oh my gosh, the fumes. Those stinky rotten egg fumes
Oh.
from the perms. Woo,
And
girl.
then let's get it in our dryer and heat it up.
Oh my gosh! That's right! Oh my gosh. And then you couldn't wash it
Right.
for like, I don't know, a day or two or something.
I don't
So we had to
remember.
sleep in it and
Yeah.
smell it.
Yeah, that's why.
Wow, I hadn't thought about that in a long time.
That's why middle school and high school were so tough for me school wise.
Yeah,
Just
perms.
kidding. I don't know what happened in college.
Hey, you're talking to the girl that had an asymmetrical haircut in middle school, so.
I have seen it. So we're talking about just say no and creating healthy boundaries in our lives, which, I don't even know if these are ever talked about because we're just supposed to be everything for everyone at
Mhm.
all times.
Yep.
And that's just as an American or a human. But if you're a Christian, you better
Ooh.
be everything for everybody at all times with a smile on your face.
That's right. For people, for God, for church, for school, for your family, for everybody.
You're the yes girl.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, like, even in our homes, we have property lines, we have fences for our dog. Everybody needs to know their boundaries, what the expectations are, and we need to set those for ourselves, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. It is not bad to distinguish and set boundaries, but I have found that it is one of the most difficult things and the most fearful for people is to say no. And there are a few reasons for that. Well, there's several. I mean, one is you don't want to let anybody down.
Right. I think also we're afraid that it will make us look less than if we have to say no to that. If we can't take one more thing on, look at so and so, they're doing it.
Yeah, they're doing it. And then also, we don't want people to be mad at us. We
Oh,
want everybody to
girl.
like us. We don't want to be rejected in any way, right?
That's a
It's
you
like,
thing.
I don't want her to be mad at me. Of course I'll bring 20,000 donuts to middle school next week. Nah.
Here's the thing.
I'm actually like super good at saying no now. I have to
Right.
practice saying yes.
Here's the thing. If I'm not ruffling feathers, I am clearly not living my best life.
Me too. Me too.
But it took a while to get here.
Word. Took
Yeah.
me a long time. We also worry about seeming selfish. If we're saying no and oh, I'm sorry I can't do that for you, it's like, oh, well, fine. You know,
Right.
we're perceived as being selfish or prideful. Like, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you think you're better than this, so you're not going to do it.
Yeah. Or it could be the other way.
Oh,
Our pride gets in the way of us saying no because we want to look good and we want to do everything. So it could go either way.
right.
And then there's guilt.
Yeah.
Gosh, guilt.
It's a hard place to be in this world.
I know.
I do remember, trying to figure out what I'm supposed to say yes to, what I'm supposed to say no to. And part of the process of figuring that out is stopping, which
Mhm.
now's a good time to stop,
Yep.
stopping in the world and thinking, what is it that God has called me to and equipped me for in this current season of my life?
Yes.
It's all going to change, right? Nothing is permanent except for death. So at some point, you'll have a different season.
Mhm.
You'll be equipped differently.
You'll
So
be in
I-
a different phase of life. Your kids will be different. You know, at different ages, different independence levels. Things change.
At no point in my life, growing up, I never ever had aspirations for myself besides I was going to be like a professional baseball player. That didn't work out so well. But I really didn't look ahead and think I'm going to be XYZ. And so, but never in my life have I ever thought I'm going to be a stay-at-home homeschool mom.
Mm-hmm.
That's a Christian podcaster. That was
not on your list.
not on my list. But this is where I am in my season of life because God said number one in your life right now
Mm-hmm.
is you're my child. Then you are a wife, and then you are a mother.
Mm-hmm.
That is for me right now.
Yes,
That might
ma'am.
not be for you. You might have kids and be married, and that's not where God called you to. But I have shown this book that God has written to. We've talked about this chapter a lot. Like, hey, God, is this a chapter I'm still in? Is this still what I'm supposed? Are these my priorities right now? And He confirms me over and over again, yes. And so when someone comes to me with something, I literally have to go through those filters.
Yes.
Is this something that fits in the, God's child? You're honoring your husband and you're putting your husband and your family first right now? No, I can't do that because that's taken away from what God has called me to do right now. But taking the time to identify what it is God's called you to do right now will
Mhm.
help you tremendously in setting a boundary.
It's true, and I think it's difficult to do that on your own sometimes. I did actually. There's a great book out there, Chazone, by Craig Groeschel, and he takes you through.
Okay, so stop. No one can spell Chazone or Craig Groeschel, so we're going to
It
put a
looks
link
like
or something, right?
Chazown, Chazown. It's a Hebrew word.
Okay.
And I don't know how you spell Craig. I know how you spell Craig. I just don't know how you spell Craig's last name, Groeschel.
Maybe
exactly.
we'll find a link or something.
Yeah, we'll put a link out there. It's a great book that takes you through looking at the exercise of looking at your core values, your spiritual gifts, and your past experiences. And where those three, like a good Venn diagram, but with 3 circles instead of just 2, where all of those things intersect is that, I call it the sweet spot.
So your
Your
core
Chazone.
values,
Mm-hmm.
Your
Spiritual gifts
spiritual gifts.
and past experiences.
So I should probably be in a group of people drinking in a bar talking about Jesus.
Yes.
Sweet.
That may be it.
Sorry.
It helps you find your sweet spot and set your priorities.
Yeah.
Which is what you're which is so good, and I did that for myself this year for 2020.
Oh, go girl.
And our podcast was one of those priorities. Not before my husband and
Right.
family, but before many other things that have been on my list. And I will tell you, I'm going through it with my mentoring group now, and kind of taking them through it because it has been so helpful when anyone asks me, to do something, to go back to that list, and I'm able to say, you know what, that's not in line with God's plan for me for right now.
Uh-huh.
And it gives me a confidence to say, normally I would, but this time I can't.
And I love that you say that. And I have told so many people that line right there. They say, I don't know how to say no. And I said, well, my
Don't
friend
say it.
Alice, and she says, normally I would, but this time I can't.
I got to give a shout out to my friend Mary Edna from years ago. She was like a mentor
Uh-huh.
for me, mentor and friend, older and wiser, and she told me that. when I was a young mom,
It's brilliant.
and I've never forgotten it. I
Yeah.
still use it to this day.
Love
So
it.
shout out to Mary Edna for that.
Yeah.
You know, there are a lot of reasons why we're afraid to say no. You know, we also want praise and recognition. You know, we're people. We want some praise and we want recognition too. But we shouldn't be afraid for a lot more reasons, because when we are saying no to those things that we shouldn't be doing, we've got a lot more time to love those people that are in our life that God has called us to build up and love on, and to do the projects and the things He's actually called us to do.
Yeah, so here are a few things that I think about when saying no. I did learn that I tend to, if I don't already have it in my mind that this is what my priorities are, right? Before I had figured all this out, I would, in the moment, think, oh, that sounds fun, and I want to make the person standing in front of me happy, right? And so
I've been with you in a meeting where you wanted to say yes, and I was like, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah, and so I want to make that person happy, and so I would say yes. But what I have found is, come 2 weeks later, when this event or this thing is happening that I'm supposed to go to or be a part of, I'm really angry because I now have to say no to bath time with my kids. This is when they were little. I don't bath time anybody anymore, but I'm saying no to providing dinner for my family, which is what I love to do right now. Spending time on the couch with the kids and watching Family Feud, whatever it is that you do. I'm angry that I have to say no to that, and I show up at the event with a chip on my shoulder.
Girl, that is some good truth right there.
And so realizing that
I've
when
been in
I
that
say
situation
yes
as
to
well.
this, I have to say no to this, and having that process in your head when someone's going, hey, can you come to my party on this night, on Saturday night? You have to think, when I'm saying yes to this party, I'm saying no to dinner with my family, or whatever it is that's important to you. Just know and consciously make that yes and no in the moment.
Right.
Or say, let me check my calendar and get back to you, and that'll give you a break to really go back and analyze everything that might be happening.
I love that. That's great, because we're thinking in the moment instead of to the future in that moment where we're going to be, like you said, we're going to be resentful, and the only person who are you resentful? You're resentful at the event, but you're the one who put yourself there.
Correct.
So it's like the irony of the whole thing. And so, I have definitely done that to myself, and I have put myself in that situation so many times before. I think the more you do that, the more you recognize, hey, saying no isn't that bad.
Right.
Now it's like people know, okay, I know you won't do this.
Yeah.
But would you do this? Because I've said no. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. No, that's not my thing. But I'll do this.
Yeah, I had a season when I was out all the time because, a lot of ministry happens at night. And so I was out so many nights of the week. And I finally talked to my husband, and he was getting angry too. Not angry, but just like resentful,
Sure.
because you're gone. You're like, oh, dinner's on the stove, gotta go.
Yeah, bye-bye now.
And by the way, I dress up real cute for my events, but if I'm not going to an event, that poor man, I don't know, yeah.
Woo, sorry for you.
Sorry about it. So we kind of said, what works for our family right now? And he was traveling a lot, and it was, you can be out of town or you can be gone one night a week. And so I knew that one night a week I would be away from my family.
Right.
And so if
that was already
booked,
taken,
and it normally was with a ministry event, nothing else was happening. So I can't go to dinner with you because I'm already out one night a week for ministry.
you set a boundary.
Yeah.
And you were setting a boundary to protect relationships and your emotional and spiritual health. Maybe not your physical, but, talking about physical, saying no, we shouldn't be afraid to say it because it can rid us of toxic relationships.
Yeah.
People think that just because you're family, you have to be with someone.
No.
No, you do not.
You know what my dad says? Just love them from a distance.
Exactly. The most powerful thing you can do for them. You should not hold bitterness and resentment.
Right.
You need to work through that if you have it, and turn that over. But the best thing you can do is to stay away from them and pray for them with a sincere heart.
Yeah,
and that is okay.
We talked around the holidays about what it was like to feel the guilt and the heavy weight of having to interact with a family member that was very toxic. And how do you set boundaries with that?
That's tricky.
It is tricky, but I think we came up with some great ideas. So, I can't host dinner if John's coming, right? John can't come to my house, but if you want to host dinner, we'd love to pop over. And that way, you're not committing to an entire, 4 or 5 hours with John in your house, in your own area.
Right.
You're going in and you're able to it's like bouncing in, bouncing out. And so that's one way to handle a toxic situation and putting some boundaries in place if you do feel like you have to see that person, if you feel like that's part of what you need to do.
Yeah, and like at our family, setting the boundary of, hey, I'm going to host Thanksgiving, and we're not going to serve any alcohol at all. It's alcohol free. And I set that boundary for my family, and I think everybody benefited from it.
Yeah.
But, that worked. And I knew that was a good thing for our family. And so I took control, not to take it from anyone else, but offered to host. And didn't force people to come, obviously.
Right.
But just said, this is what we're going to do. And everybody honored that and had a great time. I think when we say no and when we set boundaries, as stressful as we think it is at the time to say no, in the long run, by doing so, by saying no, it decreases your stress level. Like you said, you're not stressed that you're leaving your kids. You're not angry. You're not resentful. You're where you should be, in that sweet spot with God. Even Jesus said no.
Yeah, he did.
Like in Matthew 16, Jesus said no to Peter, who wanted him to avoid going to the cross. Hey, he's like, Jesus called him a stumbling block. He's like, what, Peter? Nah, man, I got a destiny to fulfill. I got a plan. God's got a plan.
Because he knew his will. He's just going to go.
So, and that's the hardest thing. You're like, no, that's the one you want to say yes to. Right. Oh, yes, I would love to not be strung up on the cross, right? Nailed to that cross. So, so we can say no to our friends. Jesus said no to his. In Mark 3, Jesus said no to his family when they claimed him as their own. So we can say no to our families.
Yeah.
Just because your family doesn't mean that you get all yeses.
Mm-hmm.
In Luke 23, Jesus said no to showing his great power and coming down from the cross. He could have easily done that in a second, even while the soldiers sat there mocking him and, blood draining, crown of thorns. So we can say no to those who mock us.
Yeah. And
tease us and tempt us and, judge us for wanting to stick to our values and that sort of thing.
They test my sanctification.
Woo, girl, that's old school right there. That's a Baptist. In John 6, he said no to the crowd who was calling him to be king as they saw him, so we can say no to church leaders, and we can say no to those in the crowd. He said no to religious leaders who warned him to stop alleging he was the Son of God, but he wouldn't stop that either. So, even Jesus said no. If Jesus did it, we can surely do it.
Yeah, and I think it's important, if you are saying yes, to figure out why you're saying yes. So, great example, one of my children used to be in the band, and I'm not a band mom. Apparently I was a band booster because I gave them money, but I had to give them money. Anyways, I'm glad you guys do those things, but I'm not going to do those things. I'm not going to go sit at the football games. I'm not going to travel with the band. That was not my thing. And so one of the band moms, she had said yes to too many things, and so she came over to me and I lived across the street, and she said, I'm going to need you to go here and get all this ice and deliver it here and and I didn't feel one piece of guilt, because just because you decide you're going to be Superwoman and then you couldn't fulfill your role as Superwoman doesn't mean I'm going to be your sidekick.
Nope. You are not her Robin.
That's right.
You're not the Robin to her Batman.
I can't. I'm sorry you're in this predicament. Maybe we can sit down and talk about learning how to say no, but I'm not going to ruin my day because you said yes too many times.
That's another great reason to say no and to set boundaries, is because then our emergency becomes somebody else's emergency when they had no part in it. Right. And that's not fair.
Yeah.
You don't want to be that girl.
Yeah.
Just say no now and know your limits and know that it's okay that we all have them. And so, there are a lot of ways to say no.
Yeah.
You can say no without saying no by saying what we normally I would, but this time I can't.
Yeah.
If that just doesn't work for you, you can say it with a compliment.
What does that sound like?
Oh, let's see. This sounds like a great opportunity, but I'm gonna have to pass. Thank you so much for considering me.
Oh, see, you're so nice. I was like, heck no, girl. Didn't you know who you're talking to?
Yeah, I didn't say I use these. I'm just like, nope, not gonna do it. Nope, that's not my thing. I remember when the principal of one of our kids' middle school was like, you should head up the PTA. I'm like, nope, that's not my gig. I don't do it. I will help. But I am not a PTA leader. I volunteer at the school, and I work quietly alone in the library, and that is where my niche is. So I know my niche, and I just told her. And she was like, okay. And she respected that because I knew. But if I'd hemmed and hawed
Right.
and
Oh,
didn't know already in
Yes.
my head what my plan was, it would have been easier for her to convince me.
Another way to get out of the like PTA and stuff is like, you should be a PTA mom. You'd be like, I have some great ideas. Margarita trucks. We could have like happy hour up in here, and then trust me, they don't call you back.
Oh, well, that is another good one.
See, I mean, like that's how the rebel gets out of it.
Or you can say no, but give another option. Like, I cannot speak at that event
Yeah.
in December because it's way too crazy. But maybe we could look at spring, something in the spring.
Yeah.
So you could offer another option.
Okay.
Or you can offer like a brief explanation as to why. But I don't,
Yeah, you don't owe anybody an explanation.
you don't owe anybody an explanation.
Just
you know?
remember that your
My-
time is your time. It's not their time. You don't have
Yeah.
to explain it away.
You do not. I mean, you can say, that sounds like a great opportunity, but my schedule is full. That would be a quick explanation.
Yeah.
But you really don't owe anybody that.
Yeah.
And so know that. Be confident in that. Do figure out what your priorities are and know where your strengths are and what you've been called to, so that when someone asks you, you already know. Just like when I was asked by that principal to head up the PTA, I already knew my place is in the library.
Yeah.
Quiet little helper in the background. That's where I like to be. And I could say that, and it shut her down. Not in an ugly way, but it was like, oh, this lady already knows what she wants, what she needs. All right, I'm
And
moving
you had
on.
no guilt
I had no guilt.
because you had already had this whole conversation with yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's where it's at, taking the time to do that and then making sure, here's one last thing because I know we're running over time, making sure that the priorities that you know God has set for you, you are honoring in your life, okay? So
Mhm.
don't say, I am a mother and a wife first, this is where God has called me to shine right now, and then spend 6 days a week out shopping, a girls' night out, or something else.
Right.
Don't lie to yourself. Right? So
Word.
be honest with yourself about
Be
where you're
honest.
spending your time. Because where you're spending your time is where your priorities are. Is that aligned with what God's called you to do? Because if it doesn't, you're probably tired.
Mm-hmm. And angry and resentful
Yeah.
and not loving on the people.
Yeah, and you're
Who
probably
need the
flipping me
love.
the bird on I-40. Just saying. When you're racing to your
Ooh.
next event.
We call that your number one. That's what I had to tell my kids when they were little. Oh, honey, Mom, what does that mean? He's telling me I'm number one.
That's the way they greet out here in Raleigh.
I'm number one a lot in Raleigh. Hey, thanks for joining us today, talking about this difficult concept of saying no. It can be really challenging for women, but we know you can do it. Normally you would, but this time you just can't.
Just
Hey,
say no.
there you go. We enjoyed our time with you today. We'll look forward to being with you again next week on the Sinner and the Saint.